Hi. Lecture on Chapter 10, Project Communications Management. Uh, we all know communication is important, but for a project manager, it's probably one of the more important tasks and skills he needs to develop, he or she. So there's definitely a lot of examples of projects that failed in communication. A lot of IT people are not very good communicators, so they're good at solving problems. So getting them to explain what the problems are, what the status is, and stuff is a challenge sometimes. But it also shows that a skill that you as a potential IT worker needs to work on communication skills and build both strong verbal and non-technical skills to advance your career. Definitely in 2014, a survey shows that most important non-technical skills, problem solving, teamwork, listening. So if there are people that are hired with very low technical skills, but have strong soft and business skills, can sometimes get hired ahead of strong technical people. Because based on the work environment, if you're not a shop that works independently, one person at a time, you don't have to communicate with anybody. But if you're working in multi-teams, multicultural environments, communication is crucial. Some of the process that we need to think about is, what is our communication? How are we going to plan the management of this communication? How do I manage these? How do I control them? Some of the keys, as my career in project management, I spent more time on the phone and in meetings. I always thought I should have got paid by the meeting minute. But you needed to focus on both individual communication and group communication. There are times when you dealt one-on-one with people. There's customers you've made presentations to a whole audience of 300, 400, 500 people. So you needed to have both formal and informal methods of communication. You need to be able to speak in front of crowds. You need to make sure you give timely communication of information to key people. And sometimes you got to give the bad news, and you got to be able to set the stage for how do I deliver that bad news. One, you have to understand that people are interchangeable parts. Mythical Man Month says, hey, I can take, 2 people to do the work of one just by shortening or lengthening the amount of time. Not necessarily always the case. Importance of face-to-face communication. I was on the road so much for about 10 years, only because I wanted face-to-face interaction. Having a phone call, having an email, having a letter, just didn't communicate, because we know that a large percentage of communications through body language. This slide says 58%. I've seen higher than that. So being in the room face-to-face, seeing what people are saying, how they're saying it, how their body's reacting is important. Listening to the tone, listening to the way they hold their face, they're smiling, are they looking away? Sometimes we could also keep in mind the different type of people we're talking to. What's their personality traits? Are they introvert? Are they extrovert? Are they intuitive? Are they thinkers? Are they judging? Each one of these personality traits has a different communication style that they communicate better, or better would hear what you have to say. What types of things can we do to kind of encourage more face-to-face interactions? Don't have long, drawn-out meetings. I used to have what they called, and they're mentioning stand-up meetings, and basically you're there for 5 minutes. You stand up, you go around the room, tell everybody, get your status, short, to the point, and go through it. Now, sometimes companies have policies to prevent meetings on a given day, or emails for a given day. One company I read about had actually no meetings on Mondays or Fridays. No meetings, no conference calls, no nothing on those 3 days. So those are 2 days that people could work on projects, and then statuses had to be, meetings had to be scheduled and bought into. So you just didn't hold spontaneous meetings just for the sake of holding a meeting. Distributing information, you definitely don't want to, as a project manager, you don't want to be burying crucial information. You don't want to be afraid to report bad information. So you just need to make sure that that information is done. Other considerations, we've all played like the telephone game where the receiver doesn't exactly understand the message that the sender intended. Same thing happens in communication. Not everything gets received the way it was expected to deliver. You got to make sure you understand based on geographic location. So I have people in different parts of the world, different language barriers, different culture barriers, different work hours. All of those come into play as far as how do I, the importance of communication. So every project should have a communication plan, a document that we often refer to. This is what the plan is. We're going to meet on these days. This is how we're going to do the communication. This is what's got to be reported, the minutes, the action items, whatever the case may be. For small projects, maybe just part of a quick contract with the team members. For large projects, definitely need to be a document that everybody bought into. Some of the contents of that management, what are the stakeholders' requirements? How will the information be delivered? Who will receive it? Methods for conveying it, the frequency of it. What happens resolving issues? What's the escalation process? So just some things to keep in mind. Now, managing communication, that is a large part of a project manager's job. Getting information to the right people at the right time. The use of communication, the appropriate use of different methods in media, performance reporting. What technology are we going to use? Is it email? Is it a website? What is it's the best way to deliver that message? Now, what types of communication classifications? You've got interactive between one of the means. You've got push communication, which basically I'm sending it out without the request. I'm just sending it out. Or sometimes I'll ask for information. So I'll request status updates. Now, some of the things I'm asking for in usually cases is performance. And there's a couple of different types of reports. Status reports is, hey, where do we stand at some particular time? Progress reports says, how's the project team, working together, accomplishing during a certain particular point. And then forecasts. What do I predict the status is going to be? Just because I know what it is at this point in time doesn't mean I don't have issues in the future that I need to clarify. Now, how do I control communication? Well, there's different types of systems out there to ensure optimal flow of information. Project teams use various reporting systems, meetings, emails, different types of ways. But sometimes you have to have a facilitator from outside the project team to see how well communications is going. Now, suggestions for improving project communication, definitely each of us need to worry about developing better communication skills. How to effectively run meetings. The use of email and other technologies, texts, web pages. Maybe actually use templates from other successful projects that may facilitate better use of communication. So how do I develop better skills? Well, we spend a lot of time for companies, but learning, going to classes, reading books, joining Toastmasters, things of that nature can help you develop individual communication skills. Get in a debate team. All of those things come through, because the other thing you got to worry about is, what are you putting on your social media? 93% of the recruiters are checking it. What are they checking for? What would probably cause you to lose a job? Posting something embarrassing on a corporate site, maybe a little bit of sexual innuendo that you don't want. Maybe you've revealed company secrets, making fun of your boss, your team members. You're supposed to be working versus posting. Could be an issue. How do I run an effective meeting? One, do I really need the meeting? Two, make sure that we understand what the purpose of this meeting and who should attend it. Have an agenda to send out ahead of time so people know what to expect and what they're expecting to bring to the meeting. Make sure all the handouts and any presentations, videos are all planned ahead of time. Make sure the logistics for the meeting is, do I have to have a live video feed? What do I have to have? And then run the professional meeting, build relationship, the tools that we use today, email, instant message, texting. We want to make sure that email, all this stuff is appropriate use of communication. Am I sending it to the right people? Is the subject line meaningful that people can tell, do I need to worry about it? Is it an actionable item? Is it an FYI? Make sure that I can send the right information to the right people. There's definitely tools out there to help share communications, SharePoint portal, Google Docs, Wiki, Kanban boards, all the way of communicating with your team and others. There are several templates out there that people can use for communication. Sometimes you just don't know what's the best communication, what's the best status report, so using templates is not a bad thing. Just know that they're out there. At the end of a project, every project manager says, okay, what did I learn? What are the lessons learned? What did we do good? What did we do bad? What can we improve, to make the next project better? So you need to make sure that this lessons learned report, as you're wrapping up a project, is done in a timely fashion. And of course, you want to make sure all of this documentation is stored away. It's archived so that future projects you can go back and look at, okay, what was communication? What was our project plan? What did I learn in the past that I don't want to repeat on a future project? So having these archives is important to have you have a history and lessons learned, and you have to recreate the wheel every time you go out. Sometimes a project website is important. Using software to assist communication. There are several tools out there that can allow you to aid in communication. Some people telecommute and remotely or work part-time. So you got to make sure that you understand what tools and software you're going to use to facilitate this communication. So I know this seems like it covers a lot, but basically it's how are we going to communicate between project team members and how to do it effectively, both in the plan, the tracking, the controlling, storage of it. So hopefully it gives you a little bit of idea as a project manager what you need to do, and maybe as a developer in the future, what types of things a project manager is going to ask of you. So hopefully this helps. See you next week.